Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful, yet kind of invisible forces that shapes our world, the Zeitgeist. You know, it's like the atmosphere we're all breathing, the current that guides our thoughts without us even realizing it. So, let's get into it.
So let me just start with a pretty provocative question. Are your thoughts really, truly your own? I mean, we all like to think of ourselves as these independent thinkers, right? But what if I told you every single idea you have is shaped by the time and place you live in? That's the whole idea we're unpacking today, this hidden influence of the spirit of the age.
So the term itself comes from German. It literally translates to time spirit. But what's so fascinating is that the Zeitgeist isn't just one thing. Nope. It's this powerful cocktail of the dominant ideas, the collective mood, and the core beliefs that make one era feel completely, totally distinct from another.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the big picture. Then we'll break down an era's cognitive and emotional layers. After that, we'll look at how society keeps itself in sync. And finally, we'll talk about why knowing all this stuff actually gives you a massive advantage.
First up, the spirit of the age. You know, understanding the Zeitgeist is kind of like becoming an intellectual anthropologist. It's like you're learning to spot the invisible atmosphere that's shaping what we all believe. It's about finally seeing the water that we're all swimming in. And this isn't just some abstract history lesson, okay? It's a real, practical skill. It's called contextual intelligence. And really, it's just this fundamental awareness that no idea, no belief, no piece of art ever just pops up out of nowhere. It's always connected to this huge web of historical and cultural forces.
This quote just nails it. The frame here, that's the Zeitgeist. The very same idea or action can mean completely different things depending on the context it's in. See, context isn't just background noise. It literally creates the meaning.
So, how exactly does an era build the structure for our thinking? Well, that brings us to the cognitive blueprint, this invisible architecture that organizes how an entire generation makes sense of the world around them.
And this architecture has three main parts. On the surface, you've got the dominant ideas. Go a little deeper and you find the paradigm. And then, framing absolutely everything, is the worldview. Let's take a quick look at each of these.
Okay, so dominant ideas. These are the big concepts that everyone seems to be talking about. Think about terms like sustainability or disruption right now. They act like these huge gravitational centers, just pulling all conversation towards them until they become the unquestioned baseline of an era's common sense.
Now, a paradigm, that's even deeper. It's the epistemological architecture. I know, it's a mouthful, but it just means the unspoken rules of the game. It's not about what you think, it's about how you think. A paradigm sets the rules for what even counts as a valid question, or a good argument, or even reality itself.
And finally, we have the worldview. I absolutely love this phrase, the cognitive ceiling. It's the absolute limit of what a society can even imagine or think about at a particular time. It's basically the boundary of an entire era's imagination.
But hey, thinking isn't just about logic, right? It's deeply emotional. And every single era has its own distinct feeling, a sort of collective mood that sits underneath everything else. This is the emotional atmosphere, and trust me, it's just as important as that cognitive blueprint. So we can describe this atmosphere with terms like the general feeling or the collective mood. These aren't like formal ideas. They're more like the pre-rational tonal vibrations of a society. You know, it's the feeling in the air.
This general feeling is this powerful, kind of misty sense that just seeps into everything, from politics to art to how we talk to each other. It could be a spirit of rebellion, a wave of optimism, or maybe a deep collective anxiety. And a lot of the time, this feeling actually comes before the big ideas that try to explain it.
So just take a second. What is the emotional texture of right now? Is there a dominant mood that you can feel in the air around you? Being able to pinpoint this is a huge first step to understanding our very own Zeitgeist. Okay, so we've got the thinking structures and the emotional structures, but what holds it all together? How are they maintained? Well, this brings us to what we can call the social operating system, the set of invisible programs that keep a society in sync with its own Zeitgeist.
And this system, it runs on three core programs: the beliefs we all collectively share, the social norms that guide how we act, and the core values that define what's important to us. Together, these things create order and enforce the spirit of the age.
What's really fascinating is how this operating system works on different scales.
There's this constant push and pull between the local zeitgeist, the spirit of a single city or culture, and the global zeitgeist, which is always pushing for more universal patterns. Real awareness means seeing how these two forces are constantly interacting.
And here's the real payoff. Once you become aware of these norms, you gain agency. You get to make a conscious choice. Are you going to conform, or are you going to critique? You can actually start to strategically navigate your society instead of just being swept along by the current.
So all of this leads us to our final section, the payoff. Why does any of this matter? Why develop this contextual intelligence? What's the practical yield, the real benefit of understanding the zeitgeist?
Well, there are three huge rewards. First, you gain interpretive depth. You just understand things on a much richer, deeper level. Second, you develop historical empathy, the ability to genuinely understand why people in the past thought and acted the way they did. And third, you achieve a new level of adaptability in your own thinking.
This really captures the whole goal perfectly. It's about making a shift from being a passive product of your era to becoming an active partner with it. It's the difference between being swept away by the currents of history and actually learning how to navigate them. And so we end right back where we started, but hopefully now with a whole new set of tools. I'm going to leave you with this question to think about. What are the dominant ideas, the collective moods, and the unspoken rules that make up the invisible atmosphere shaping you, right here, right now? Thanks for tuning in.